Iranian experts add yet another chapter of glory to Iran's petroleum industry. The launch of the gasoline production unit of Imam Khomeini Shahzad Refinery Development Plan, taking Iran to the verge of self-sufficiency in producing premium-grade gasoline, with a daily capacity of 4.5 million litres and a plan to reach 7 million litres per day in the near future. The National Iranian Oil Refining and Distribution Company.
Today on Press TV, in Yemen, protesters have formed a transitional presidential council to take over the country after the fall of Ali Abdullah Saleh's regime. The council includes former government officials and civil society leaders. It will be responsible to choose a leader and announce a parliament to draft a new constitution. In Bahrain, Saudi-backed forces have attacked the funeral of a woman who was killed in Friday's crackdown in Sitra. The woman died after riot police repeatedly fired tear gas at her house in order to break into the premises. Similar brutality left a protester seriously injured on Friday. In Libya, 10 revolutionary forces have been killed as they advanced to retake the eastern oil town of Brega. Clashes between revolutionaries and pro-Gaddafi forces also continue in the western frontline town of Bir Ghanam, the fighters' closest position to Tripoli. The revolutionaries are trying to advance towards Gharian in Libya's western mountains. Lebanon has called on the UN to stop Israel's constant violations of its sovereignty. Prime Minister Najib Mikati says his government is committed to putting an end to Tel Aviv's acts of aggression through all possible means. Mikati made the comments on the 5th anniversary of Israel's 2006 war against Lebanon. 3 NATO soldiers have been killed in Afghanistan. One of them was killed by a man in Afghan army uniform. 2 others died in a militant attack in the west and bomb blast in the south. At least 311 foreign soldiers have been killed in Afghanistan this year. The leader of Iran's Islamic Revolution has met with the visiting Pakistani President Asif Ali Zardari in Tehran. Zardari earlier met with his Iranian counterpart Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. The visit is aimed at deepening economic and political cooperation with Iran. Regional peace and stability are also on the agenda. The US President has called for reducing America's debt by reforming programs, taking on the tax code and cutting certain tax breaks for the wealthiest. Ahead of a debate on ways to reduce the US debt, he said Washington has spent more than it has taken in over the past decade. And in the US state of Georgia, a security guard has opened fire in a parking lot in Atlanta, killing 1 woman and injuring 2 others. Police say the 22-year-old gunman turned himself in hours after being identified. The gunman has been charged with murder and aggravated assault. Those are latest here on Press TV.
Hello and welcome to Press TV's news analysis coming to you from Tehran. I'm Marzia Hashimi. Thanks so much for being with us. Well, after months of protests, anti-regime demonstrators in Yemen have formed a transitional presidential council. This group is to rule the country after the fall of Ali Abdullah Saleh's government. However, with many of the 17 individuals appointed to the council being former regime officials, many may ask if this council will take anti-regime Yemenis in the direction that they want to go or in the direction that others want Yemen to go in.
A number of former officials and senior anti-regime protest figures have formed Yemen's Transitional Presidential Council. The council is to replace the regime of long-time ruler Ali Abdullah Saleh, who has been in Saudi Arabia since early June to receive treatment for blast wounds. The 17-member council includes top former politicians and civil society leaders. Former Defense Minister General Abdullah Ali Alaiwa has been appointed as Chief Commander of the Armed Forces, while Fahim Abdullah Mohsen has become Chief Justice of Supreme Judiciary Council. The council is to choose a leader to appoint a new Yemeni government and announce a 501-member parliament to draft a new constitution. Members say the council seeks to create a united leadership for the anti-regime protest movement. The council says it is acting independently from Yemen's official opposition parties. They broke with the opposition after it held talks with the Saleh regime. The creation of the Transitional Council comes amid growing public anger at what they call US and Saudi interferences in the country's affairs. It also comes on the heels of Saudi Arabia's failure to broker a deal between the Saleh regime and the opposition. And senior tribal leader Sheikh Sadiq Al-Ahmar has described the US ambassador as the real ruler of Yemen. The creation of a transitional council to end Saleh's authoritarian rule is certainly good news for many Yemenis. But it equally raises suspicions that another effort to hijack the popular uprising could be just around the corner.
Well, I'd like to welcome my guest to the program. From London, former advisor to the Yemeni Prime Minister and political opposition activist, Mr. Mohammed Qubaty. And from Sana'a by phone, joining us from the High Council Joint Meeting Parties, Mr. Mohammed Abdul Malik Al-Mutawakkil. And from Beirut, Professor of Lebanese University, Mr. Mohsen Saleh. Thank you all for being with us. I'd like to start off in London. Now, Mr. Qubaty, do you consider this step in general of forming a transitional council as being positive?
Obviously, yes, it should be positive. This was a long-awaited move because for the past 6 weeks, the country and the whole situation was in a complete state of deadlock and stalemate. So there was a need to break and end this stalemate. And it was quite, I think, rightful that the youths were the people who have announced the formation of this transitional council, which means that there is some sort of coordination now going to go between the youth and the politicians of the different sectors of the political spectrum in Yemen. As the saying goes, you know, vision without action is daydreaming, and action without vision can be a nightmare. Let's hope that this is going to be a way forward for a coordinated effort by the revolutionaries on the ground and the different political activists who have been dealing with the situation to try and break the and reach a settlement for the whole issue, which as you have mentioned, there was real efforts at one time by our regional partners as well as the international partners. But unfortunately, the handling of power and the transition of power was completely, you know, sort of derailed. 3 versions of the GCC initiative were presented to Ali Abdullah Saleh, who every time just refused to sign them. And for the past 6 weeks, the constitution has been completely violated. The Article 116 of the Constitution postulates that the power in the case of an incarcerated or weak president should move to the vice president. Unfortunately, the remains of the regime the sons and the nephews of Ali Abdullah Saleh in particular have completely stalled any move towards taking a constitutional step towards the transfer of power.
Okay.
So I think, yes, this was a longly awaited move, but they should move as quickly as possible.
All right, let me turn to Sana. Okay, let me get Mr. Abdul Malik Al-Matawakil in on this. How do you see it? Now, sir, you are part of this council. Let me ask you, with many of the individuals on the council being former regime officials, how likely will this group be revolutionary enough to take Yemen in a different direction?
However, this initiative of the council is really a beginning for a long road for achieving the change in the country. And this initiative has to be developed and to be consulted with all the Yemeni revolutionary young people.
Okay, now let me turn to Beirut and get Mr. Saleh in on this. Now, Mr. Saleh, both our previous guests, Mr. Qubaty and Mr. Al-Matawakil, basically said it's a good direction and that it is bringing together the young people and also those with more experience. Let's look at this new coalition. Do you think it is likely that they will be able to take Yemen on the track that it wants to go? And if so, what exactly has to happen in order for them to stay or get on the right track?
You know,
Mr. Saleh?
The joint meeting parties.
This was for let me turn back to Beirut. This was for Mr. Mohsen Saleh. Go ahead, Mr. Saleh.
Well, good evening. This is, I guess it's a positive sign and it's a promising sign that some of the Yemeni parties meet and constitute such a council as a transitional council, but I guess they have also to bring about some kinds of ideas and other factions from Yemeni. And I am encouraged by the statements of Sadiq Al-Ahmar that the American ambassador is or was the real president of Yemen. And this move, I guess, will encourage the Yemenis and the people in the streets that the Americans and the Saudis are not in this council, and they can move independently from the American intervention and the Saudi intervention. And I have heard some of the people in Saudi Arabia and from the Americans, they are trying to put their hand on this council and other factions in Yemen. And now they are creating another issue, another very important issue that when Zindani, one of the great figures in Yemen, is saying about an Islamic republic, and others they say they raise another slogans that the secular state. And I guess this new council has to do fast and move towards these factions in order to bring them to create a new environment, collecting the opposition parties together in order to say to the Americans and to the Saudis, even to the Yemenis, that we can unite in order to create a new political move towards uniting the Yemenis, the factions, the tribes, and all the political parties to kick out or to remove all the obstacles from this unity and try to not let Ali Abdullah Saleh and his sons and his army to move the situation towards civil war or kind of disturbances in Yemen. I guess they have great and important duties to do, and I guess we should try to say to them that go and move towards creating a new political environment in Yemen, and good luck in this move, but there are many obstacles.
Now, Mr. Mr. Qubaty, how do you see it? Mr. Saleh talked about many obstacles, but it's needed to go in a different direction. How difficult is it in a country like Yemen, where there are a lot of differences, a lot of different tribes and different factors in it? What is the main situation that has to be done, or what's the main thing that has to be done in order for this to become a cohesive group and to be able to come together as one and take this country in another direction?
Well, the first thing I think the Council have got to really take into focus that Ali Abdullah Saleh's argument to the international and regional community that with Yemen without Saleh means Yemen will move into anarchy. As I have said, this move had came a little bit late, but I think now the Council have got to move quickly to reassure first the regional community and the international community that they don't mean at all any pushing the country into and derailing it from a way towards having proper relations with its neighbors and in general with the world powers in general. So by trying to really approach the regional powers and the international powers so that to reassure them that we are not at all we are trying to prevent chaos, because Ali Abdullah Saleh's intentions and his scenario was planned for the country to go that way. All the moves he had, handling some of the areas and some towns to some of the militant Islamists which he has grown up in his palace, and then moving the whole country with such a very difficult situation now economically. Nearly the economy is completely completely destroyed, and then the humanitarian situation is it's really quite worse than anybody could really realize. So those dangers are there. So how now to face the tasks of trying to get things back out of the way where Ali Abdullah Saleh and his entourage were planning. They were trying to push the country into anarchy and chaos. Now you have got to take steps towards preventing that chaos.
Let me get in here, Mr. Qubaty. Now you talked about Mr. Saleh trying to push the country into chaos and creating havoc, basically. What about other entities besides Saleh who have supported his regime throughout the years? For example, Washington. For example, Riyadh. What role do you see them playing at this point in time? Will they simply step back and let Yemen take its course if it's not in as where they would be defining it as being in their interests?
Thank you. Very interesting question, because I'm speaking from London, and as everybody remembers, some 18 months ago here in London, by the initiative of Gordon Brown, the then Prime Minister or Premier of United Kingdom, there was a group created called the Friends of Yemen. The main purpose of this group was to prevent Yemen from sliding towards a failed state. We want to see that group move now, and that includes our brothers in the GCC, the European Union, the United States, everybody. They have got to really now show that they have meant what they said and they say what they mean. Because now the country is now on the verge of anarchy, on complete chaos. People are suffering, and once people, start getting into this state, Ramadan is coming, as you know. There is no any food stuff, there is no any fuel, there is no electricity, and so on. So now they have got really help on a basis of a humanitarian, at least, responsibility, and a responsibility, as they have said. They said that they wanted to be partners of Yemen, partners, regional partners and international partners. We want them now to really show that they meant what they said, because over the past 6 weeks, actually they have got the youths and all the protesters on the ground. They are completely frustrated, they're completely disillusioned, and they have let them down. What worries me, that those youth might decide to go and sleep with the devil. They might decide, seeing that the regional powers and the international community has acted against them, and they have favored one person or one family against the whole country. They could go and be allies with the devil.
Who's the devil in your perspective?
Well, I don't mean, I mean in brackets. The devil, I meant the people whom the regional powers and the international powers are worried. They're worried that there might be a vacuum and some people might come and take initiative to push their agenda in Yemen.
All right, let me turn to Yemen itself and get Mr. Al-Mutawakil perspective on this. How do you see it, sir? What has to be done now at this point in time? Because obviously what we've been talking about, possibly hijacking this revolution by different entities. Are you concerned with that at all?
Do you know the most important of the new council is to go to the area who went out of the control of Salih's regime and to organize them again and to coordinate them with the council. To be this new council, to be the representative of the authority of the revolution. And, you know, this is very important for the country not to be divided and not to accept these people who is going to be the fighters, because now they still accepting the unity of the country and they accepted the legitimacy of the revolution. This council is very important to move in that way this time.
Okay, now, Mr. Saleh, with the situation, with what we've been talking about, how do you see it at this point in time? Will Riyadh and Washington basically sit back and let's say this council wants to go in a direction that they may not see in their own interest? Will they just sit back and let it happen?
Well, I guess the devil here is the United States. Always, when you see the United States intervene in any place, you will find disturbances and problems and civil wars and division and strife in the people. And I guess this is a good step, if this council, transition council, is really independent and can unite the Yemeni people from all factions. I guess this is a good point of departure, and I guess I really agree with Mr. Who talked before me, the Yemeni leader, and I guess I read for him many times that he is keen to see a unity of the Yemenis to move towards. We should know that this is a revolution, means change the regime and change the situation of the Yemenis and unite the Yemenis for the flourishing of their country independently from the Americans and the Saudis. And I heard and I saw in your TV some slogans against the Saudis. They should understand that the Yemen is an independent country. They have real leaders and they have their movement, and they went into the streets in order to make these changes. And they should really try to depart from this kind of poverty and corruption who created by Ali Abdullah Saleh, who is backed by the United States and the Saudis and the GCC. And all these problems, I guess, created by the intervention of the United States and the West. And we can see their intervention in Tripoli, I mean Libya and other places. They created problems for the people. They never
So, Mr. Saleh, you're basically defining at this point, because Mr. Qubaty talked about the devil, and I asked him who it was, but you're defining then, let's say, that devil or that negative entity as the United States. But what I got from you, Mr. Qubaty, was that it was not the United States, it was not the West. No. However, it was, and I'm still waiting for that answer. Which entity are you the most concerned with?
No, I meant anybody. You see, we know about reports that the United States at one time thought that this stalemate would give them a chance so that they can use the force. They're using their drones. The question of sovereignty is not there. And they have been hitting now the different parts of the country without there was no any objection from the ruling, from a power there. So there isn't a sovereign government there. No, I didn't mean, I meant anybody could use the vacuum and use it for his own purpose and interest, not the interest of Yemen. whether it could be the United States or any other power in the region, anybody who has got an agenda with these youths now, as I've said, I meant at that time, the youth are disillusioned. The youth they feel frustrated. And my friend from Beirut has mentioned the activity of Abdelmajid Zindani and so on. I've been yesterday on the BBC and they were speaking about the danger of Islamics moving within the youths. Yes, I say if the youths feel they are frustrated, then they don't mind going, hitting. If they are going to suffer, then they want the whole world and the region to suffer with them. But let me point out to the important thing. I agree with Mr. Mohammed Malik al-Mutawakkal's view. The interim council now has got to be the ruler in those more than half of the number of the governorates of Yemen, and now the central power is not there. The central government is not there, and we could run into chaos and anarchy there, because there are warlords now who are now distributing the public goods. They are distributing fuel and so on. So we want to see this interim council to be the real caller of the shots and the real organizer of power in those areas. The day-to-day needs of the people have got to be shown that these people who have formed the council are going to take care of those. With the formation of the new government, with the formation of the new National Council for drafting a new constitution, there have got to be obvious short-term, mid-term and long-term objectives which the council has got to look for and try to implement as soon as possible.
And how confident are you?
At the verge of
how confident are you that this council, the individuals that have been elected on this council, how confident are you that this council will be able to do exactly what you've just said?
Well, I think it was a good starter because it's formed, as I have said, I have mentioned, first thing it was declared, its formation was declared by the youths, and it includes most of the sectors of the opposition. I was worried that the Houthis were not represented, but Mr. Mohammed Abdel Malik and Tawakkal and his party, the so-called the forces, the revolutionary forces party, they could represent them. But I think on the ground now, these people have got they could have some sort of confidence to go and help the local councils. There are local committees now all the way across the country in those governorates, and they need to be supported by this interim council, by the transitional council, so that things can be organized, especially as I've said, Ramadan is coming. But we have got as well to move and try and get an area. We have got to show the world that this council is actually ruling. So it has got to delineate and say, this is my land and I'm ruling. And
all right, and on that note, Mr. Qubaty, I'm so sorry, but we are out of time. Yes. I'd like to thank you, former advisor to the Yemeni Prime Minister, Mr. Mohammed Qubaty from London, also from Sana'a, High Council Joint Meeting Parties, Mr. Mohammed Abdul Malik al-Mutawakkal, and from Beirut, Professor at Lebanese University, Mr. Mohsen Saleh. Thank you all for being with us, and as always, viewers, we thank you for being with us. As another look at one of today's top stories. Join us same place, same time tomorrow. Look at one of tomorrow's top headline stories. Well, I'm Marzia Hashimi, signing out for myself and all the crew here in Tehran. Thanks so much and goodbye.